hold something in my hand. What is it? A rose, a white rose. What do you see? What is it? A flower. What else? What is it? It's beauty. You know what I see? A mistake. I see a really drastic mistake. This was not supposed to be a white rose. It was supposed to be a red rose. And this is what Alice saw when she came to the kingdom to find that there were some cards painting the white roses red. Do you know why she was painting? Why the cards were painting them red?
The queen wanted them.
Yeah, the queen. The queen. The queen. Or the queen. The queen would say, off with their heads, right? It was supposed to be a red rose tree. So the cards, they were frantic. They were really engrossed with their fear, and they had to paint the rose red before the queen found out. And so Alice happens upon them, and she says, "What are you doing?" They say, "Well, if we don't paint them red, and the queen finds out, off with their heads." And so she joins in also, not really knowing the context or the background, or she just accepts the assumption that this is a mistake. And mistakes, they have to be corrected. There's got to be punishment. There's got to be justice. And so they began to paint the roses red. Have you guys ever been in organizations that try to do that as well? They say, "Look at that, that's a mistake. There's a problem here. Let's investigate the problem, and if we understand the cause, then we'll know who's accountable, and then off with their heads." I worked for a university in Nevada, and I was in my 5th year teaching college there. And our organization was doing really quite well with the state standards and the various assessments about enrollment and finances and stuff like that. And I'll never forget that we had a new vice president. And so I'm in this executive meeting with them all, and she comes in and says, "We have serious problems. Look at this data. The data never lies. Look at the data. It's really clear. We have a problem. And so, let's analyze those problems. Where are we going wrong? Where are there deficiencies?" And so all of a sudden, leadership became a kind of policing, a kind of investigation to find all that is wrong. So what did people start to do? They started to paint the roses red in fear that if their department looked bad, off with their heads. And so it created a culture of fear. It created a culture of incredible amount of judgment and suspicion, a lot of talk, a lot of pain. But the rose started to change until one day my mentor was in one of these executive meetings, and I noticed that she took on another approach. When hearing the vice president saying, "Well, these are all the things wrong, and these are the things, and here's how we need to consolidate, and here's how we need to get rid of this department, and how we need to add this, and so on," she started to listen not for what the person was against, but what the person was for. And in that moment, my mentor began to say, wow, I'm curious about that. It sounds like you really want to create interdepartmental harmony, and you want to create a kind of synergy among them. You want to create collaboration and openness and communication. And the vice president said, yes. In that one moment, the meeting that started with so much tension, with so much ammunition. I remember all the reports coming in and people ready to point their fingers. Something changed in that room. Language was used not to judge or demean or to tear down. Language was used to actually to build up, to cultivate a vision. And in doing so, people stopped painting the rose red, but rather began to see what was working, what was actually really working in that moment. And in doing so, they found that there was beauty. And in that beauty, they began to see that there was potential. And in doing so, they started to work for what they were for, not what they were against. Aware that there was once a time when they were painting the rose red out of fear. I have something in my hand. What is it? A white rose? A flower? Beauty? Yes, it's all those things, but you know what I really see? I see a grade. I see a way to measure, and the stem is not as long as it should be, and I see that the leaves are crooked, and the petals are off. Is there a brown spot there? I would give this a failing grade. That's what this is, right? A grade. It's a score. It can be measured. It's data, and so we've got to fix this. I remember when I was applying for college, the university called me and said, can you just clarify, what is your total SAT score? And I gave it to them. And then they said, no, we asked for your total, please. I said, that is my total. They're like, how can you have those grades and have that SAT score? I'm like, I don't know, I don't know. I could have listened to them. I could have listened to them in thinking that I was not worthy of going to their school. I could have listened to them not thinking that I was not even worthy of going to school at all, and just started to paint my rose red. Because I knew my grade, I knew my standing, I knew my lot in life, and it was not going to be at that school. So I started to paint my rose red. But what's funny is I had parents who stopped me. They actually started to change the conversation, say, Nato, you are not a grade. You are you. You are a learner. You are not a grade. So even when I started to paint more, they helped me no longer do that. And I think about all of the texts. Right now, we are in a time where we are engaged in literacy and education as our primary social justice mission, aware that 22% of adults in Philadelphia cannot read. When I think of that, I think of all the stuff that we use to measure learning. Take, for instance, when African Americans are asked about their race directly before they take an exam, they perform worse than if they had not been asked about their race. The same is true, but at the opposite side, when Asians are asked before a math or science exam to list their race and ethnicity, they actually perform better. This is called stereotype threat. Stereotype threat, a theory developed by Claude Steele, the provost of Columbia University. And while he was at Stanford, he started to do these studies about learners and how when labels were put on them, they started to perform differently. African Americans in particular were afraid that they would live up to this stereotype and not be worthy. What's interesting is that this doesn't just happen around race. It also happens around gender. When we start to paint our roses red, take for instance the Asian girls. When they are taking their math test and when they are asked not about their race or ethnicity, but when they are asked literally about their gender and then they take the test, they perform worse than if they had not been asked about their gender. Because the stereotype is that girls are not good at math and science. Now, this is very interesting kind of psychology. There was another study of women, very successful women, who were just months away from finishing their PhDs at an elite university. They were doing remarkable. There were these 14 women who, over a period of 6 years, had been performing at relatively the same level all throughout those years and were really doing very, very well. And then one day, they were asked to come into a lobby, and they were saying, "You're about to go into an advanced placement test because all of you have been performing so well and doing so remarkable in our program. We really want to assess why you've been able to succeed so profoundly." And they said, "So let's take half of you," and they started to call off the names, and those women went into their exam. The other women sat in a lobby where there was a TV, and a man came in and said, "I'm doing a study about memory. In the 45 minutes that you're waiting here, do you mind being my subjects for a minute? I'm just going to play a video and ask you to remember what you see. And after you're done, we'll do a little memory test." They said, "Okay." The images were filled with negative images of women, stereotyping them in particular kind of roles, either in the kitchen or the bimbo and so on. And they started to just watch these different images over and over and over. Just then, the lobby door opened, and they said, "Okay, it's your time to take the test." And the graduate student said, "Okay, I guess we'll have to do the memory test after you take the exam." And they went into the exam, and these women performed significantly lower than the women who just went in 45 minutes before. Interesting. Interesting how those images led them to instantly paint their rose red. If you take a classroom of 5th grade students and you tell a teacher that this half of the class is horrible, they misbehave, they lack the intelligence to succeed in this 5th grade, there's clear evidence that they will absolutely fail this next grade, so prepare to hold them back by the end of the year. If that teacher goes in with that data, that teacher begins to project that onto the student. And those students who are expected to fail actually do. But put in another classroom, in another setting, where they are nurtured rather than blamed, they thrive. So what does it say about us? Wow, how vulnerable we are, how impressionable we are to the thoughts of others and to the thoughts of ourselves. Why do we paint the roses red? My mom and dad would say, we paint the roses red because we are taught that we're not worthy, that we're taught that we're not good enough, that we can't succeed. And so labels are put on us, and then we adopt those labels into our identity, and we, out of fear, act upon it as if we might, in fact, sort of live our way into that stereotype. These kinds of behaviors can really harm an individual's self-worth. But when we remember that we are all learners, and that we are not a grade, we might see the beauty that lies beyond the red paint. I have in my hand something beautiful. You want to know what it is? It's my true love. Oh, isn't my beloved gorgeous? Those petals, the leaves, the stem so strong. Oh, the scent is so lovely. My beloved, I just want to sing to you, oh, all the little quirky things about you others may judge, but ooh, I find so adorable when you snort, when you laugh. Oh, my love. What is it about love that leads somebody to find admirable the kind of quirks that others would judge? What is it about that moment of true love when it's like, hubba, hubba, where did you come from? You're so beautiful. Imagine to be seen by someone in such a way. Imagine to see clearly another person in such a way. And so we court, and so we move in, and so we tie the knot, and then we notice there's... Oh, honey, no. It's okay. This will make you better. It's just, I really know you, and I just, oh, damn, that bruise is still there. Ow! That hurt. You know, please don't ever do that. I want you to remember never to do that. And we begin to paint the rose red. With our pain, we begin to act. And begin to hurt people to the point that we no longer see the beauty that we once saw before. My beloved, where did you go? My beloved, where did you go? If you listen closely, your beloved will say, I'm right here, beyond the veil of your judgments. I am not your enemy or your foe. I'm a work in progress. I'm grown. And I have thorns. I'm sorry. Why do we paint the roses red with our beloved? It's because somehow we come to believe that the paint itself, is our only tool. If this is our only tool, with our love, with our learning, with our institutions, then everything needs to be painted. Even our lips, right, Jen? But when there are people who listen for not what we are against, but begin to articulate what we are for, something magical happens. It's like a positive revolution that begins to spread, where we start to cultivate more tools, like the shovel, to really till the soil, to prepare that soil just right, to open up that window so that all the light can fall in, so that we can provide that nurturing water to tend to the rose. And in those moments, we begin to realize that the game that we were in, you know the game, the what if game, was absolutely luring. If only my true love did not have that broken petal, then I would really be happy. If only that test score came out a little bit better, then I'd be happy. If only those things in the university were actually changed, then I would be happy. What a game we play, chasing images of happiness, when in fact, right before us, there is beauty all around. And so, aware that spring has sprung, let this season be a reminder that we are in a time of rebirth, of renewal, of strength building, of nurturing, and of care. Aware that the happiness that we seek is right before our very eyes.